Hi everyone. Good afternoon. So my name is Sanjay. I'm going to talk about WP CLI. Let me see the presentation slide. Okay, you guys heard of this, WP CLI? Okay, WP CLI is actually a pretty cool tool that is kind of underused. I think people don't know about the possibility of WP CLI. So what I'm going to do today, the presentation is going to be very demo heavy. So I'm going to have 3 screens. The first screen is this. Then I have, okay, that doesn't work. I have this screen, which is the CLI, and I have the website. Coincidentally, put on a happy face, everyone. Come on. Okay, so I'm going to use a lot of demos. So I'm going to do a lot of demos, but then the slides are just to guide us throughout the demo. So it's going to be not a full screen slide. I hope that's okay. Everyone can see. Basically, what I'm going to cover today is about WP CLI as much as I can, as much as time permits. CLI conventions, what those conventions mean, how to use them, and why you should use them. Introduction to WP CLI, some of the requirements, the basic requirements that you need to enable WP CLI, to make it work, and some of the cool things that we will do demonstration of during our presentation today. And of course, common issues, and of course, we can go to summary and Q&A. So we will keep all the questions at the end as usual, and hopefully there are not many questions. So the difficulty level, I just made this slider bar thing to show that it's actually not really difficult in terms of how to use it. The commands are quite straightforward if you remember them, or you can actually search them through Google, coincidentally, as to how to use the CLIs. They're actually quite simple. Once you get used to it, you will absolutely love it, and I guarantee you that. And this is coming from a person who manages 15 WordPress sites. This has been a lifesaver in terms of time, in terms of efficiency in doing stuff. And why that is, you will see it live today in the presentation. Yes, move this a bit to the side. Okay, so if you're a beginner with Linux, this is going to work for you. That's fine. You don't have to be a kernel developer to figure out how to do this. And if you are with WordPress, you've used it, you know a little bit on what a theme is, or what a plugin is, and what comments are, what spams are, you're going to be more than happy to use WP CLI. Okay, so I'm going to give you a bit of description of my setup. So I've got 2 virtual machines running. In my cloud, I'm connected via a VPN. So I've got server A, which runs, let me just show you server A. Oops. Server A, which is the Joker site here, and then server B, which is the black hole site. So there are 2 different sites, which I'm going to do a demo, which the demo is going to be on, okay? And it's running on Debian 9.6 on a LAMP stack. LAMP stack is Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. Okay, LAMP stacks are probably 90% of what WordPress sites out there run today. I don't know the actual numbers, but I can imagine most of them are sitting on a LAMP stack somewhere. That's my setup very quickly. That's exactly what I have running just for the demo today. But why CLI? Everyone's like, hey, we've got the mouse, we've got the website. Why on earth are we using CLI? Okay, let me start with a story. This year on February, sometime end of February, this year, WordPress, I upgraded most of my sites, which I manage for my company, 2 of them, and the rest of them were for friends and family, because apparently friends and family think if you speak at a WordCamp event, you are supposed to help them with everything WordPress related. So that's actually what happens when you touch and you do a talk in a WordCamp event. So anyway, I've got 15 sites. So I woke up one day and I was reading the security article, and there was a RCE on WordPress. What is an RCE? Remote code execution. So when somebody can actually access your backend by accessing the website. So it's actually quite dangerous. So I instantly had to go and at least update my company's website and my friend's website and so on. And I did that within close to 60 to 70 minutes. So I actually had to go to every website, log in, had to do update the core, update plugins, and so on. So it took me mundane amount of time. Then there was another incident that I had to update, but at that time I've already implemented WP CLI because I thought, hey, maybe this is the way to do it. So the difference between what I did earlier, which is about 60 minutes, and what I did with WP CLI, it is like 2 minutes. I log into one site and updated 15 websites with just one command. So this is what I want to share with you today, the exciting power of WP CLI. That's exactly what you should be looking at also in terms, if you are using one WordPress site or even managing hundreds of it, this is the way to go. This is one of the ways to go. It's really quite cool. I believe that you get more control when you use WP CLI. This mic keeps going down. Hang on a second. Yeah. You get more control, and you will actually see why you can precisely do commands. When you type them, it goes and does exactly what it's supposed to do. Not that the mouse does its own thing, but the thing is you get more precision. You can actually do repeated tasks easily. Like I was telling you, if there is an update today, I can just go and run one link, one line of code in one of my servers, and I update 15 servers all together at once, very, very fast. And it's very powerful because it is a sort of programming language. You can actually think of how you can automate lots of things using just CLI. And if you are a programmer, if you're not a programmer, it's also okay. But this would be at least the first step for you to learn a little bit of programming if you use WP CLI. And it actually can do more. I wouldn't say the difference is, there are differences. For example, if you want to edit a page in one of your articles, for example, you don't do it on the CLI. It's not the intuitive UI for it. You want to do it on the web. But if you want to do some certain things that are mundane, like updating themes and updating the core, this could be an option. This is what the differences that you might want to consider when you do this WP CLI. So maybe this could be your first step into coding as well. So it is not coding per se, but it is close to getting the idea behind coding to get instilled within people, you know. Because let's face it, everyone would love to learn coding at some point. And of course, do remote operations. Like I was giving you the example, I can do 15 websites with just one link, and I'm going to show you that, not 15 websites, but close enough, actually just one website, which is good enough to give you an example. And more importantly, you can copy paste. With the UI, you can't really automate stuff. You can, but you really need to know about some level of programming to do that for automation, but really this is copy and paste. What I'm going to do in this presentation is a lot of copy and paste, so I'm going to show you exactly how that is done. And you join the cool kids. You join the people who do CLI-based WordPress management. So where do we stand in terms of if you are a single user, or if you manage more than one site, or you are a big company that does a lot of WordPress sites, where do you stand? I would think WP CLI covers all of it. It depends on how creative or imaginative you are. You can actually do one WordPress site, or you can also manage hundreds of WordPress sites with WP CLI. Okay, bit of examples. This is what a command line argument is, a command line command is. Like we all know dir, that's in the Windows, to list the directories. In Linux, equivalence is ls. And then you have something called arguments. Arguments gives it a little bit more precision, a little bit more instruction to that command. For example, ls -l list with a list with the sort of time in this example above. Then you have something called the positional arguments. Positional arguments is quite straightforward. The first argument is then interpreted as the first option, second, and third is third. It's quite literal in that sense. So this is something you want to remember throughout the entire presentation, because we're going to use that examples coming into the demos. So a bit of WP CLI is written in PHP, obviously. It's a very powerful tool, in my opinion. And it's an effort. This is officially from the WordPress people. It's an effort to provide a complete alternative to WordPress, not WordPress, sorry, WordPress management. That's an error in the line there, but not an alternative to WordPress, but WordPress administration and management. And according to GitHub, the first version was in 2011, and today we are at version 2. It's grown up, it's grown big, it's got thousands of commands that you can use. The current version is 2.3.0, and it's released just a few days from today. And it's really quite a extensive community contributing to it, and it's growing, it keeps growing. Right now it has 40 arguments, that is the direct arguments, and you've got sub-arguments inside of the argument. That goes up to thousands. And hundreds of third-party plugins, for example, BuddyPress and WP Supercache. And of course, as a developer, you may be able to write yourself. For example, if you build your own plugin, you can create a WPI extension that can be used by other WPI users as well. And it's multi-site support, which means like people like a lot of our sponsors out there, the Exabytes and all those guys there, they can actually, they actually run multiple WordPress on a single machine. So those are what we call multi-site sitting on a single physical machine. So you can actually manage them. The way you differentiate different sites is by the URL. So you can actually define for this server, you can have multiple URLs and each of them managed independently. And of course, remote operation support, which is something I will also show you. So the basic requirements, you need to be in a Unix-like environment, which means Linux, FreeBSD, SideWin, limited support in Windows environment though. I don't know exactly how much commands in there are actually limited, but it is limited support. Like I said, if you host a WordPress site, there is a good chance it's going to be on Linux and you have access on the CLI to actually go in and install WP CLI. So you need to use PHP 5.4 and above. I'd be surprised if you're still running anything lower than that. The PHP 5 is end of life, so you should not be using it anyway. You need to use 3.7. Again, I'm going to be very surprised if anyone actually does use anything lower than 3.7. It's already 5 point something now, so you should be upgrading that as well. And of course, you have rights to the folder in which WP is installed, which your WordPress is installed. And of course, have CLI access. So let's get straight into some basic things here. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the whole slide. So what we're going to do now is we're going to install WP CLI. We're going to do all of these commands. So I'm going to go into the command line, and I'm going to do copy-paste. So let's do the installation. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go here and I'm going to paste. So I'm not sure if you can you see back there? You need it bigger? Okay, so I got to make some changes. Give me a second, yeah? Oh, here we go. It was supposed to be 20 plus. Ooh, let's be luxurious, 24. Let's see if we can duplicate current shell, and then that should be bigger. Is this better, guys? Much better, a bit better. But don't worry about the command. Don't worry about the command. The command is available out there. It's straightforward. I'm just showing you how it works. So I'm installing it, and this is the command to, excuse me. So this is what I'm doing. I'm actually creating a home directory for the user www data. So WP CLI says that you should not be running this as root. And we do the installation as root, but then all the other operations, we will use the user called www data. Why? Because www data is the user that is running Apache. See, if you can see, Apache is actually spin off by that user www data. So you do not need root access. You just need the user that is running Apache or the web server. And this is usually given to you by your provider. Okay. So let's rename this WP CLI file to something more easy for us to remember, like just WP, for example, like that. And make it executable, like that. This is all written in the guide, so you don't have to worry about remembering command lines. So this is more towards my machine, what I'm doing here. It's not necessarily the case with your machine. So what I'm doing is, I'm stopping the web service so I can actually create this user, and I'm going to start it back. This is the web server. Okay, So I've started the web server now. Okay. What I'm going to do, su is a command that actually switches user. So I'm going to, excuse me, I'm going to switch to that user that we were talking about and go to that directory which we installed, the WP CLI. Okay, the first thing I want to do is see whether it's working. And there you go. That's it. You've installed WP CLI. From here onwards, we're actually going to do cool stuff, okay? Let's go back to the slide. So what we're going to do next? Let's see. So we've done the installation. So let me just go through it. You download the file called WP CLI PHAR. PHAR means it's a compressed bunch of PHP files. It's a packaged PHP file into a single file. And we are going to use that file to do all our operations. Just one file. You don't have to worry about all the smaller files in there. So some basic stuff. You can use the WP command to get help. You can go and check things like your updates. You can check the version of your PHP and so on. Let's just go and do some of these things. Okay? First thing I want to do is I want to see if I'm running the latest WP CLI. So I'm going to check update. It's going to go on the internet and it's going to check, oh, I'm running the latest one. That's great. If you need to update, then you go and do an update. But in my case, we are running the latest version. So let's go and check the WP core. So this is actually where you are interacting with your actual WordPress site. So what we are doing here now, we are running the WP command. Can you see that? Oh, you can't see that. Oh. Yikes. Oh, that's strange. You can't see that. Yeah, I think I need to do that. Okay, so can you see that now? So what you're running is the command core, meaning related to the WordPress core, and you're going to check the version. So this is the one that you need to add. You need to tell the system where the WordPress is sitting on, then you press enter. It's actually going to tell you it is now, my site is running 4.9.8. So this part here, we need to key in. We don't have to key in all the time. So if you go into this example here, I can actually check for updates, but I will show you how to eliminate trying to put in the part all the time. For now, we just use the part, and I'm going to enter that. So it's actually going to say, oh, what are the updates available? There are two updates available. One is the minor update and one is the major update. So I'm running 4.9.8, and the minor update is 4.9.12, and the major update is 5.2.4. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Oops. This one here. So instead of entering some of the data manually, we can actually create a local configuration file. So the local configuration file in this case is called WP CLI YML. Again, do not need to worry about all the details. What I'm trying to show you is the capabilities and the possibilities, not showing you the details yet. So you can actually do it on your own free time. So we create a local file called WP CLI local. All you need to do really is to enter the path here, and that's basically all you need. So now I do not need to key in the path because I've already defined the path, so I just do that. And now it actually can do the same thing because you have created a config file. Okay? Let me make this bigger so. Ooh. All right, so that's the config file. Then you want to also, the WP CLI has the capability of downloading and installing a full-blown WordPress site from just command line. So you do not need to remember some commands that you have in a typical installation. You just need to use the WP CLI command. You can actually fully install a complete website in just a matter of a few minutes. So I'm going to skip this one because we're going to have a more detailed one at the end. I'm going to actually create a temporary WordPress site, and I'm going to show you how that works. So I'm just skip this one now. I'm just going to show you some of the options. So we can get inventories. For example, I can get, for example, on my blog, the description of my blog. I just go in here, since I've already defined the path. So I go and get the description of my blog, and it's called, this is for the Joker. So I'm going to show you that. The description of the blog is, this is for the Joker here. Okay? So I can also do things like modify that. I can actually set to a different name like this from the CLI. So I'm going to change that to here's to the Joker. So if I go back here, I reload the site, it's now here's to the Joker. So the WP CLI just went and changed some of the information there. How about things like check config list? The config list here are the options that you usually set in the settings in WP, in WordPress, right? So you can actually see all the possible options that you can modify with the CLI. For example, you can change the database name, the username and password for it, and stuff like that. So if you know what you're doing, here's where you can actually change that. Sometimes you might have forgotten some passwords, so you want to change some settings. You can do that straight from the CLI as well. So here's an important one. Okay, checksum does this. Checksum actually checks whether or not the files in your WordPress does have the same checksum as the one online. So what is the checksum? It's actually a comparison of your current version and the version that is maintained by the WordPress site, the official site, to see if there's any difference in the files. Why these differences are important? Because sometimes when you get compromised, people can inject Trojans, can inject code into your website, so you do not know if those things have been injected. And usually in the past, when people's website get hacked, what we usually say, reinstall the entire site, because that's actually what needs to be done, because we don't know the integrity of files. Like for example, now I did the checksum core, and it says, okay, the checksum matches up. So what if I modify a file? Let's say I modify, what file should we modify? Let's change index, for example. Let's add something here. I hacked you. Like that. So now if you run the checksum, it's going to complain. It's going to say, hey, somebody changed one of the core files. So you can actually do checksum verification. That's very important in terms of security. Next, we can also checksum. So Cheryl was mentioning about using good plugins. Also, using plugins that have been modified. A lot of people sometimes side load plugins. They don't use it from the official WordPress site. They get it from a third-party blogger because some blogger says, oh, we've modified the plugin to be much better, but actually they have injected some nasty code in there to track your usage and all that. So you can actually checksums for plugins that are installed as well. So if anyone modifies the plugin without the official distribution version of it, it will actually complain the checksum is off. What we can also do in the WP CLI, we can actually look at all the plugins that are listed in your site. For example, I want to see all the plugins that are active, ACTIVE. I can list all the plugins that are actually running on the site, but right now I don't have any. So I only have plugins that are inactive because it's a brand new site. So if I look at it, I have two ways to do it. I can do it this way, or I can go to the console and log in, as you all probably know, is WP admin. I put in my username and password, again, using the web page. So if I go into my plugins, these are the two plugins that are inactive. See, the link for active is on, which means they are still inactive. So I can also look at themes that are inactive. For example, like that. Yeah, it takes some bit of time. Okay, so it's a bit slow, but then because there are a lot of themes, these are all the themes that are inactive. Okay, the next one, I can also get list of posts. For example, I want to get the first post. Oops. Okay, so this is the ID of the first post. I can actually filter out based on the number of posts. So this is my posts that are the only posts that I have in my blog currently. Okay, so just now Sherry was talking about the Google plugin, right? So we can also install plugins using CLI. In this case, I'm going to install Jetpack first. And then I'm going to try and look for the Google plugin. What was the Google plugin? Did anyone remember the name? Sidekit. Sidekit. Okay, so let's go and search it. So let's say I don't know the name, so I can actually do a search. So I can do WP plugin in. Then there's a search and the keyword. Sidekit, for example. So you can also manage that from the CLI. Oh, let's see. What do we have? Oh, this one here. Do we want to install it? Let's go and install it, all right? WP plugin, install. Okay. So if you notice, I'm just doing an installation. I'm not activating it. Wow, there you go. It's actually downloading and installing the plugin, but not yet activating it. So let's go and look. We installed 2 plugins. We installed Jetpack just now, and we just installed the Google one. Oops, sorry. Hands are too sharp, fast. Here we go. So if I go to my plugins now, I should see the Google one, which is here. We just installed, and Jetpack. So let's go and activate it. You can also activate it, and that's as simple as WP plugin. What was it? Jetpack activate, or something like that. Did I get it right? Yeah, I did. Oops, sorry. It's something like that. Yeah, so sorry. It's a plugin activate. Okay, so we're going to activate that. Oops, my bad. This is the problem with too many screens here. Let's activate it. So you saw that earlier it was not activated. And we are also going to activate the Google Sidekit, which we just downloaded as well. Oh, hello. Okay, so Google Sidekit. Okay, activated. So let's look at it now. Just now it was not activated. So if I refresh my page, it is now activated. Okay, so you can see it's activated. It's now saying that you can deactivate it, so which means it is activated. So you can do that with plugins. Let's go to the next one. So you can also update plugins. So we know that there is a plugin that is not updated. We can look at this list. See, Akismet is not updated. So I can just go here and I can, oops, wrong one. Update a particular plugin. Again, it will go and download the latest version. You can also specify exactly which version you want as well. You don't have to say, get the latest one, you can specify. So here's updated. So if I go and refresh the screen, and it is updated. So this one is not updated. So I'm just going to leave it like that. So what's now interesting is we can do this as well. Instead of you doing one by one, I can do all the plugins on my site with just one command. So you don't have to click multiple times. You don't have to go and each website. You can actually just do one and all plugins get updated. So what about the WordPress core? So we know the WordPress core is an old version. Let me just show you again. It's an old version, a very old version actually. I'm going to go and update it to the latest version. So you've got multiple options. You can do minor updates or you can do update to the latest version. Let's go and do something crazy and update the core from the CLI. If you can see, the version that I'm supposed to update is 5.2.4. I'm not running that version. I'm running 4.9.8. So we're going to do the core update. Okay. So while it's actually downloading, it's that straightforward. It's just command lines and you get the entire WordPress updated. So the idea I'm trying to get you here is not about the commands, it's about the idea that you can actually manage WordPress sites with just command lines. Simple as that. You can do programming and you can actually do multiple site updates, which I will also show you in a short while. So while that is going on, takes some time sometimes. So you need to do two things. Like, for example, major WordPress updates also updates the database. So you need to update the core, and you also need to update the database. This can be done two ways. You can do it on the CLI, or you can do it on the GUI. So once this is done, unpacking the update. So this is going to take a while. It's going to be another 1 minute or so. Yeah, meanwhile, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so there are other operational stuff. It's a bit small, but I'm going to show you a very quick one. We're going to create a new post. And let's see if that's done. Okay, we have done. We have done the update. So if I go and refresh the page, it's going to tell me the database is not updated. So again, I got 2 ways. 5 minutes? No, it's 3:30. Yeah? Okay. Was it 3:30? Oh, okay, I'm gonna use my Q&A time. So this is another one. We can actually create posts from WP CLI as well. What I want to show you next is to combine all of this together to do a remote update as well. So here I'm creating a new post called, this is just a CLI. Okay, so let's continue since I've already updated the database. So I just created a new post on a CLI. So if I go to my post, I've got written in CLI, which I created here, written in CLI. So this can be done. And if you're a developer, you want to do something cool, you're testing your WordPress sites, you want to create multiple posts, you can also do that. You can actually run a command like that. And you can create multiple posts with just one command. Look at that. It's creating multiple posts with just one command. So if you had to do it in the GUI or the WUI, you had to do it one by one by one. So in this case, we created multiple posts through a little bit of programming. And here we go, 10 posts created for you on the CLI. So let's go straight to the remote stuff, which is, sorry. Okay, so let's try and update a remote server. So let's say we want to update this server here, which is the other server. Remember I told you there were 2 servers. One is the Joker website, and the other one is the black hole. So I'm going to update the remote one. Like that, I'm going to go and check the remote one. So the second server, I've already installed WP CLI, so I just need to do that. Okay, it's saying verify. I put in the password. And it's actually going to my remote site and getting information about that WordPress site. So it's telling me it's an old version. Okay, let's do more stuff with the remote. So in this case, I don't want to key in the password. So what I do is I generate something called an SSH key. So you can actually, sorry. Ooh. Oops, sorry. I have to use root. So I'm going to generate an SSH. Okay, I'm going to, where's the SSH key? Ooh. Oh, keygen. Geez, sorry. My bad. So it's keygen. So what is this doing? It's actually creating a key, a public key of me, and I'm going to copy the public key to a remote site. Why you want to do that? So that you do not need to key in password each time you log into a remote server, which is what I do for all my 15 WordPress sites. So I'm going to copy this. So what I'm doing now is I'm copying the key to the remote server. Like that. So the key is now copied. So if I do this now, if I SSH to the server, if I try to remote into the server, it should not ask. Ooh, my bad. Sorry, need to close this. I do not need to key in password anymore. See, I'm logged in to WP2 from WP1 without keying the password. So why is that important? Because then I can get to do this. I get to do this. I get to create a script like this. I'm going to create this script for you guys. Let's call it like that. I'm going to paste that. So what does this script do? So it is actually going to take this information, which is the host IP address, and it's going to run all these commands against my remote WordPress site. So let's look at this remote WordPress site. This other WordPress site is not updated. It is an old version, It's got multiple plugins that are also not updated. I'm going to show you that shortly. So if you look at this, it's got the old version of WordPress. It's got multiple plugins that are not updated. It's got multiple themes that are not updated. So I'm going to script all of this. Using this script, again, it's not about the commands I'm running. It's about the capabilities of what we can do. I'm going to make the script executable. Oops. Like that. And I'm just going to do this. I just need to key in the IP address of my remote server. Oops. Update remote. Wow, nice music, huh? Like that. And what it's going to do, with just this one script, I check the version, I download the plugins, I update the plugins, I update the themes, I update WordPress to the latest version, and I'm done. All of this with just one command line. So the imagination that you can use, the imagination that you get with this is as far as you can imagine. So if you handle many WordPress sites, this is probably one of the ways you can automate most of it. And for developers, you can, like for example, I spoke to someone who is who started a web company that runs WordPress, and they can also install something like this, interact with WP CLI, update multiple sites with just one click. So you get unlimited potential of commands of managing a WordPress site just from CLI. So the power of this lies in the underlying PHP scripts called WP PHR file, which we renamed it to WP. So it's just a PHP file that does all of this. And here's the cool thing: the idea behind this WP CLI is to give you equal amount of manageability of your WordPress site, either by using WP CLI or through APIs. Some developers have created APIs, which you then make a GUI from. But if you don't want to start building a site to manage a WordPress site, you can use WP CLI and manage all of it. And here, we just updated everything. Don't believe me? Let's refresh this page. This is the second website. Now, nothing is needing update because I just run one command. Okay, so it's my time, right? So that basically summarizes the WP CLI capabilities. Again, this is not extensively what it can do. It can do lots more. It can, in fact, like I said, thousands of commands. It's a matter of how creative you want to use the WP CLI. Again, this presentation is to show you the power of WP CLI. It's as good as any scripting language. It's good as using Ansible, for example. There was a talk earlier on Ansible. Ansible is a CI/CD tool. It's a remote management tool that you can also take advantage of WP CLI to do automation. There are some common issues. One thing I want to address is if you hit into a problem, run the debug. It will tell you actually where exactly the problem is. Again, do not run this as root because you might create powerful commands that could cause severe damage to the server. Again, root is the highest power user. You can do lots of damage there. So run it as a less powerful user, like for example, that we did the example just now with www data, which is the user that runs the web server. And finally, I just want to do a quick summary. So WP CLI cannot do everything. For example, you don't want to modify your blog or your WordPress site using WP CLI. That would be counterintuitive. You want to use the GUI for that, the web UI for that. You don't want to use CLI, but you want to do CLI for that command that you just saw. Look at that, the amount of things that we've done. We updated themes, we updated plugins, we updated the WordPress core, all with just one command. And you can charge your client a lot of money and you say, look, I did a lot of work, but it's actually just one line of code. If you'd want to do that, I don't do that. I don't charge any of my people because like I said, if you speak in a WordCamp event, they assume that everything you do for them is going to be free. WP CLI aims to be a complete alternative, which you can see. It is not there yet, it's getting there, it's coming there. And it's ever growing, contributions happen, it's version 2.3.0. It's definitely getting more powerful. It can install WordPress, update stuff, manage posts, fix problems, reset passwords, and a lot more other things it can do as well. And it's extremely lightweight. As you can see, it's just command lines. It's just something you type on the command. And if you are a developer, if you created plugins, you can create WP CLI extensions for those plugins that you created so that people can manage. For example, WooCommerce. Anyone use WooCommerce here? If you have WooCommerce, it's also available. There's a plugin for that. You can actually manage your WooCommerce using CLI as well. You manage your clients as well. And it's totally cool, and I hope that at the end of this, you will give this a try. You can see that it's a lot of tasks that has been made easy with WP CLI. So with that, we end the talk with a list of references, and these slides are going to be made available. You can go and download them. This is all the references that you need. You don't have to write anything of those things down. They're all online and available for you to use. I hope that was a beneficial talk about WP CLI. It's a bit technical. Thank you very much. If there's any questions?
Thank you, Sanjay. So just a token of a little gift here for you, a cap. Thanks for the